with Spirit of Matter, and I'm just going to discuss a small transit that has been going for a while and is now perfecting. And this is Black Moon Lilith in Cancer, opposing Pluto in Capricorn. And right now we have the moon touching this point, so it's a lovely time to um, talk about this. And I have been watching Black Moon Lilith applying to oppose Pluto for a while now and wondering what will that bring. Because to me it's happening in my fifth house and I did not want to be, biased by the fact that it's happening in a certain position in my chart. And Lilith is basically our bodily urges, our bodily desires, usually. And it does not necessarily associate with children. Now, you've probably read the title for this video mentioning Balenciaga scandal, and we're like, well, but what's that to do with that? And I was wondering too, but I can't ignore that this whole scandal is being exposed as Lilith opposes Pluto. And like there are other things, and there is also Mercury here that was applying to square Neptune, and Mercury does rule children, so that can be in news or the scandal breaking out. Um, and yet, I get the feel that this moon ruled Lilith um, has something to do with that. So, for those of you who do not know somehow, there's this company called Balenciaga, whom I have to admit I've never heard of before because I'm not a brands person. And they did a lot of things along the way with child abuse and pedophilia, and then they had sold basically child sex toys, not sex toys for children, like not like yeah, sex toys that are in the image of children. Um, and recently they posted something that caused them to be cancelled eventually, and that was literally advertisement including child pornography. So the children were dressed, but unfortunately they were used in pornographic connotation. Um, and and they held puppets which had BDSM stuff on them and some signs of like denoting the devil or devil worship or whatnot. Um, we know that, child ritual abuse. I don't call it ritual abuse, I call it an abuse of ritual because I believe the occults, when practiced ethically, are actually a good thing and they help people. And yeah, like I don't think that occult is a bad thing. I think that abuse of ritual is a bad thing. And I don't think that any acts of worship regarding hurting children, for example, or animals, is religious. It's a very peculiar opinion, but that's my opinion. And so finally, Balenciaga is being cancelled. But the funny thing is, and this stands out, that except for Kim Kardashian, who just tweeted something and then said she's reevaluating her relationship with the brand, no celebrity um, no celebrity canceled them publicly. I don't like Kanye. Well, I was wondering if I would do like chart, and I decided not to because I think it's just no, like no. Um, yeah, we're like we're not living in a world where that's post enough these phenomena so that we can look at the chart of those people who are acting these roles and say, what was in that chart? I don't think that's irrelevant. And no celebrity canceled Balenciaga, and that is um, like nobody came with the public announcement um, that you know it is so I'm speaking I'm not speaking about celebrities who never wore Balenciaga. I'm speaking about the type of people who made this brand famous. Okay, don't come at me now, oh but this artist did and this. I'm not in everyone's Instagram, okay? So but we have not seen a wave of celebrities that used to contribute to the brand, including like Beyonce. I mean, she has them in one of her songs. Obviously, it was before that campaign. Um, that being said, they are along the years they have had a lot of conspicuous content, um, and it pops the question. So the question is not what's happening with Balenciaga. They like okay, they do child porn, fine. Also, the children that work in factories that are marketed as absolutely politically correct are having factories in all kinds of states and countries where the children are at child labor, and of course those children get raped as well. I mean, come on. So child abuse does not have to be as seen uh, as that advertisement. In many cases, it is actually more hidden. So the brand is less the point. They're being canceled. They're being canceled by people. My heart goes to anybody who has saved I don't know how many dollars to buy one of their products and maybe consider it a bougie thingy that they buy for themselves, and then you know that goes to waste. But what's happening in Hollywood? And this is why I think that the Pluto Capricorn here has something to do with that, and then that somehow the Pluto Lilith. Um, Children are being abused by all genders. Up until around the age of 12, there is no difference between boys and girls who are being molested. And that is something that happens across the board. Um, and that's just, I want to look at the terms that Lilith is in, if I can see that. Can I have like a. Mm, mm, because they used to have. Okay, whole sign. Yeah, but it doesn't show me everything. Okay. Um, Planetary hours, graphics, the degrees, signs. I want terms. And if I do traditional, that will give me the terms. And yeah, this moon. Well, this is the moon. Oh, it won't give me Lilith, but let's do it manually. Because that would be like 26 Cancer, which is around between Jupiter, which does denote children, um, and Saturn. And then Pluto is, I think, probably between Mars and Saturn. So let's do that. Yeah. Um, perhaps, perhaps that Lilith in the Jupiter decan of term of Cancer um, gave us that. And what I feel is that it's not Balenciaga that is being exposed here in as much as the Hollywood rank men and women that wore Balenciaga. Again, I'm not going for the artist who never wore Balenciaga, never bought Balenciaga, never contributed to the brand or were contributed by the brand. I'm not in, like I said, I'm not in everyone's Instagram. There are a ton of celebrities, and yeah, but I mean particularly the people who did. You hear not a word about them. Nothing, no canceling, no nothing. And that's big because even if the people cancel, um, the brand, um, what about those who are silent in relation to child abuse, child ritual abuse, pedophilia, and whatnot? Um, it's not news that there are weird stuff going on there, but like, why can't they speak? They speak about everything. And that was something that I noticed after watching a couple of videos of a couple of influencers, YouTube influencers that denounced their Balenciagas and decided and pointed out that, hey, like, why aren't we hearing more? Um, and to me, it's more than, a Mercury Neptune phase. I do think that that's something to do here, um, with that Lilith in Cancer, going through the Jupiter term, opposing Pluto. Um, and and exposing something that everybody knew more or less, but not to that point, is that things are way darker than we believe them to be. 2017, Node Rahu was in Leo, and then we had the Me Too. It was another, cycle of Venus. And I think that the Venus with Mercury probably exposed also this one because here's Mercury's the children. But back then, everybody was canceling everybody, and it rightfully so. And now that it's children, like, nobody talks, and that is way more than concerning. I don't know what happens when um, when Mercury and Venus reach the conjunction with Pluto. Mercury is going to spend 2 months in Capricorn. Um, but per, like, perhaps we'll know more. I think it's not the end of it. If it's indeed involved with the Mercury square Neptune, then remember Mars is retrograde in a Mercury ruled sign, so we'll probably have another wave, and it's absolutely not the end of the story. Um, but yes, this Lilith Pluto is bringing, I think, a lot of insights. It's perhaps not that outspoken, but more reflective, and a deeper understanding, deeper looking into, you know, everything that dictates who we listen to, what we watch, and I guess a lot of people are going to have a lot of depression around it because um, imagining, the circumstances of also many people that were listening to this music and that music got them through I don't know what, or were watching these movies or watching that person, or following that influencer, and now they're in this very weird position, um, where what got them through maybe even childhood stuff, right? uh, Now is put to question, and they have to find different sources of entertainment that are more ethical. Um, and I think we all have to, at these times. And I knew something was gonna come up at the time with Lilith and Pluto. Um, the Mercury Neptune is like, okay, that's transient, but Lilith Pluto, it's moving a bit slower, and only now perfecting. So I guess that's not the end of the story, and we'll hear more about it. But definitely, when Venus and Mercury are going to be conjuncting Pluto, we're gonna be more informed. Um, it doesn't mean directly, because sometimes information is being hidden from people, but it's definitely something to do with how these mechanisms work, how these hierarchies work, what's happening there with the children. We know with Epstein, he was dear to many bodies or agencies that were getting information out of him, and so he was not arrested until the very last end. um, so but that was Epstein. And what about like all these celebrities that used to wear Balenciaga? I don't know. And this is being downplayed by the elite as some alt-right conspiracy theory. Like, I mean, people who stand up for pedophilia are being presented as, oh, you're cancel culture, you're alt-right, you're this, you're that. I did not know pedophilia was a right left thing. Um, and but those voices are they're actually interesting, and they're interesting not because they have a merit, they don't, but because it's very interesting how children are basically being used, politically, and the abuse of children is downplayed as, oh, you're just accusing people of, Illuminati and whatnot, especially when there was like satanic, symbol or whatever people were thinking that they were doing there. Um, so that can stir up yet another discourse. Jupiter here is in the last degree of Pisces, squaring that Mercury, squaring that Venus, a sextile in that Pluto. So this is being downplayed as, oh, now they're going to say we're Illuminati, now they're going to say we're Satanists, now they're going to say that we're occultists, and so on and so forth. Um, while there genuinely is a abuse, basically. And another thing that I would like to remind you, this is totally a month where I have been looking at, people to do with espionage. Um, I can say there is no legal way to expose illegal activity. not just of governments, but also of all of these elites, right? They're, they got power, they got lawyers, they got bribery, probably, all kinds of stuff. And I think we should all remember that occult practice or esoteric practice per se just means that we understand that we're not alone in the world, and we ask or form relationships with beings that can be helpful. A ritual is something that we do to manifest the reality or to protect ourselves or to protect our loved ones. And that is not just the same as, drag people are not, like LGBTQ are not groomers, are not child groomers. Um, that does not mean that people who do adult sexual performance should read bedtime stories to children. But that does not exactly, it goes back and forth. And just the same, occult practices is not abuse of ritual or of children or of animals or whatnot. That's just like, it's not religion, it's not even Satan. It's just like, it's nothing. It's just an invention of people who are corrupted and basically take a ritual and take a belief and take an esoteric system and corrupt it, believing that they can get something because they're not creative. And that's something you might want to watch Gigi Young if you're interested in the occult perspective, or exposing abusive. I call it abusive ritual. I don't call it occult abuse, or maybe the abuse of occults, because that is corrupting something that is very sacred, both children or animals or whomever, and and of course the ritual itself, or the being themselves, or the names of the beings, and so on and so forth. Um, I think we will see some more of that happening, exposed, discussed, and it's very important to remember to stand firm and to not, wipe out occultism or spiritism or anything that would try to downplay into the hands of um, materialism or dogmatic materialism, um, because it's very easy to, you know, it's, I don't know if I should say this, but I was watching Doug and Stacy video, and apparently they had like a big fight with someone had a big fight with them, or I don't know what. There was just a company that uh, I don't even know if they were sponsoring or not sponsoring a brand, and there was a big event that was, a drug event, but it was a family event, and children were there, and the drug is adult event. I'm gender fluid. Like, don't mess with me. Drug is adult event. Like it's not reading bedtime stories to children in, overly accentuating clothes and makeup that are supposed to accentuate the sexuality and so on and so forth. Like, don't fool me. And if I'm in, and that is presented in such a way that if anybody says no to that, it's very easy to cancel them because they're LGBTQ phobic. They're not. Standing against pedophilia and standing against abuse of children, because you know like, I might not have the equipment, and I'm recovering myself, so you don't get to see me doing art. But it's not that I don't know about art. Every spectacle has an observer, and the spectacle of someone dressed in clothes meant for adult show reading bedtime story to a child has an observer, and the observer is enjoying the erotic allure of a child getting to be read a bedtime story by a sexual figure. And it's very easy to put that sexual figure as a drug figure, because then if somebody says no, then they're transphobic. They're not. They just understand the spectacle that was created here and the abuse of children in the spectacle that was created here. Um, and you don't take your children to see, and even an adult stand up. You don't take your children to see that. There are going to be talks about stuff that are not for children, and you don't get children to see that. So of course, Doug and Stacy, we're not afraid to stand their ground, and being Christians, they absolutely are against abuse of children, and decided to cancel that company that they believe contributed to that or sponsored that or whatnot, or maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know. Um, but those are the type of scenarios that we see. For example, the children holding teddy bears in Balenciaga's campaign with BDSM, ties up stuff around it. It was meant to put it in a way that if somebody says, no, this is abuse of children, someone would say, oh, you don't like the teddy bears because you don't like, BDSM because you're closed sexually or whatnot. It is meant to be put in that way. So I think we're going to see a lot of that with children, and children being used, and in contexts where if you oppose that, if you stand for the pedophilia, you are considered either transphobic, anti-BDSM, you know, conservative, conspiracy theorist, right? Because Hollywood, Illuminati, whatnot, or a witch hunter, right? Because if they use abuse of occult rituals, then of course you could be, if you resist in that, especially think of people who don't know what's a cult, right? People who grew up, I don't know, in Christianity or in any of the great religions, or even atheists, and are like, oh, that's Satan. They're occultists, they're Satan. It's like, no, it's just there's a huge difference between all of that. We're just standing against the abuse of a cult and the use of children in that abuse of ritual, because it's not a ritual. Um, so I I have to admit, I don't quite understand how Lilith, in particular, is this thing, Black Moon Lilith. But I can't ignore that I don't think it doesn't have anything to do with that. So um, this transit is right now perfecting and will be perfecting. I guess it wouldn't be before probably even a couple of weeks until um, we're separating. So we can continue to research, and we can continue to follow and be up to speed with what's popping up in the news um, regarding the hidden sexual um, habits of the elite. Um, we can also, keep in mind that it's not going to be, the Balenciaga was pretty much, the last one was pretty much in your face. There were years upon years of things that were not in your face. A book in the background by a creator that did child abuse in his works. I don't even, it's not art. I don't call it art. Um, and and even those things that are in your face, they contain stuff where you're being it's being suggested that if you say no, then you are being framed as conservative slash conspiracy slash um, I don't know what. um, but that Balenciaga was not having any of the fans fooled, was not having any of the people fooled, but it was definitely not having any of the celebrities who contributed to Balenciaga coming up with an actual statement and canceling them at the same time. Um, even Kim Kardashian, what does it mean reevaluating? And she's the only one who spoke up, but what does it mean reevaluating the relationship? Like, freaking cancel them. There's a reason to. It's not outraged, and it's not just that one picture. So I think we will continue to be seen more. I think that what's being exposed here is not the brand itself in as much as the lack of correspondence from the celebrities who contributed to the brands, because these brands are becoming big. When you see a big name, Beyonce say Balenciaga in one of her videos, and everybody goes to buy, the Balenciaga this, the Balenciaga that, with the code name or whatnot. Um, and we know that Beyonce takes time to this, takes time to that, but I think it would make sense to see something concerning that, especially as a mother of three and someone who is very much involved and someone who pays attention to every little detail. Um, so I don't, and the name is on the video. Um, so Kim Kardashian spoke up immediately, and she knew she's one of the main contributors. Beyonce, I did not see anything. If she did, and I'm just not informed, then you can post a link, and I would be very happy to correct myself. Um, what else, and I'm sure there are more celebrities. I don't know brands. I just heard beyond one of Beyonce's songs, and I heard Balenciaga, and I'm like, okay. And then I see Balenciaga and the weird campaign, and I was like, okay, that she probably recorded this song before that. But as you go deeper and deeper to that, you're like, okay, no, that does necessitate a public. It does necessitate coming out in public and condoning and canceling them. It does necessitate withdrawing this song and editing and putting it back. I know Beyonce had to re-edit a lot of her lyrics for her album. This one should be added too. And if you ask me, the Coco Chanel should also be, but um, that's another that's another episode. Coco Chanel is not with us, but Balenciaga is, and it's important to call out the people. It's important to call out those celebrities. It's important to understand who are we watching, what brands do they own, um, and that's a big deal. This behavior with children is a big deal. We are now at a time where all over the world is not easy, and children are the first to be affected by that. Um, so there's more and more children going to those sources that we don't want to see, and so suddenly we see it all in the open. Suddenly we see those pictures like on Instagram. I heard one of the videos. I think it was someone named Blair White, and I don't know her. I assume she's big in her field, and she was doing a very good video exposing Balenciaga. But she showed that there was also one of the people who were involved in the creative projects were having a lot of child abuse imagery in their social media. you know, what? It's not even, the dark web. It's not even, it's just like upfront in the social media, abuse of children, pedophilia, and like nobody freaking cares. Nobody takes it off. Nobody holds them accountable. And it had to be, this big um, for someone to notice. But even then, like Hollywood is silent. And note that the people in Hollywood who wore these brands were given power to the brand. So it's not like the brand is hiring Hollywood in as much as if this famous person who is already famous is wearing or is mentioning or whatnot a name, um, then that name becomes big. So, like, that's how it goes. And uh, the power is in the hands of the celebrity to cancel that. The celebrity makes money not only from like brand deals. They're supposed to have, an abundance of brands where they can turn to and, cancel one brand. Um, all in all, incredibly weird. And again, remember that abuse of children is not something that is just seen. Mostly it's unseen. Like I said, if there is child labor, we usually don't know about it. And child labor, of course, includes abuse and pedophilia. I mean, come on. And so it's not just the children work for little to no money, it's just also the working relations towards the children. Um, so, like, there's a lot there's a lot to cleanse, I guess, before Pluto moves to Aquarius. Um, yeah, nothing too much to say about this. It's not a promotional video. It's just something that I noticed, and I was waiting to see what will come up with the Lilith Pluto. So now it's perfecting, and that absolutely that absolutely came up, um, and the many aspects of it, and that's quite a depressing episode. So yeah, it's just that.